Welcome to Technology Brothers, the most profitable podcast in the world. We are still surviving the Los Angeles fires, thankfully. Both of our homes are still standing, but the story has evolved over the past 24 hours, and it's looking like there's a lot more arson going on than people previously thought. There's rumors that the whole Palisades fire started via arson. Didn't Andrew Huberman catch someone clearly doing arson?
Yeah, caught some arsonists very clearly.
And then our vice president, Ben, had to step out earlier this morning because an arsonist literally burned down his next door neighbor's house or something like that, or lit a fire.
So people are really taking advantage of the chaos.
Totally.
In the same way that you remember summer 2020.
Oh, yeah.
When the riots were happening,
Yep.
people were just saying, oh, there's protests, riots, I'm just going to start looting.
Yep.
So what people are doing now is they're going into neighborhoods, lighting fires, waiting for people to evacuate, and then starting to rob the houses.
Yep.
And they're on networks with scooters and motorcycles and rented cars, and so it's just full chaos. I was seeing in a group chat that multiple neighborhoods in Malibu have caught people just coming in actively trying to start fires.
Yep.
So now people are just trying to basically make citizens arrests.
Yep.
Full chaos.
So some recommendations for the listeners: security systems, Ring cameras, ADP, whatever you can do. There's not a lot of great stuff there. Sauron is coming, thanks to Kevin Hartz over at A-Star VC. He's starting a home security firm. It's not fully live yet, but maybe go get on the wait list if that's something that you're interested in. You're trying to defend a home. The top recommended weapon for defending a home are AR-15. Don't overcomplicate it. We joke about a lot of crazy weapons here. You don't need the Meteorite 1911s, and an AR will do the job. So maybe go pick one of those up. Also, support Andrew Huberman and citizen journalists who are doing reporting on X, and buy some Mateina yerba mate.
Mateina.
I love this stuff, and it's Huberman's brand. If you're not familiar, he acquired it alongside another Andrew Wilkinson at Tiny, and so they've been growing that, and we love. So if you see something, record it and throw it on the timeline. We saw just a crazy car crash and police chase outside, or Ben did, outside of our studio, and got some footage of that, threw that on the timeline, and just kind of letting people know what's going on, and obviously stay on top of the fire.
Yeah, it's a really crazy energy in the city right now. You got ash floating through the air. It feels like it's snowing.
Air quality's terrible. It's miserable and chaotic.
You were actually okay with there being a lot of sort of PFAS microplastics floating around because your T's been so high lately. You were trying to take the level it out and take the edge off.
Yeah.
But anyways, not good for kids. I went down to South Bay or took the family down there yesterday because the air quality was slightly better.
Yeah.
Not good for kids.
It's rough. So everyone stay safe out there, and do whatever you can to help other people that are in trouble. Check in on everyone in LA, please. Completely unrelated to the fire. We're moving on. We're trying to move to the tech stories that we love and think are interesting. Today, there was a op-ed posted by Peter Thiel in the Financial Times.
For those that don't know, who is Peter Thiel?
Oh, I thought you were going to say what is the Financial Times?
What is the Financial Times and who is Peter Thiel? I'd be interested. I'm sure we have at least one brother in the audience.
Well, it says it right here. It says the writer is a technology entrepreneur and investor.
And he's a writer.
Yeah, he's a writer. Yeah, he wrote a book, 0 to 1.
Entrepreneur, investor,
the
and
Power
writer.
Law of Business books, the only book you really need to read again and again and again. Founder of PayPal, founder of Palantir, incubator of a ton of different stuff through Founders Fund, runs Founders Fund, big venture capital firm, invests personally, and is tied to a ton of other venture capital firms.
And anytime a reporter, a tech journalist, wants to make something sound crazy and mysterious, they always go, oh, Peter Thiel backed this company.
Yeah.
And most of the time he invested in a fund as an LP, or his family office invested in a fund. So it's like very clear that he didn't even necessarily invest in the company, but they always bring it back and say it's Peter Thiel backed.
He's been a boogeyman of the left for a long time.
Yeah.
Where, I've gotten to the point where I will sometimes throw it in like Thiel backed or Thiel sponsored, because it's like, it's just such a meme at this point.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll try and correct that. Like the name of the fund is Founders Fund, not Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. Like he's one of 3 co-founders, and there's multiple GPs, and of course he's a huge force in the firm, but it is its own entity, and everyone, including him, would like it to be represented as its own thing. But that doesn't fit the narrative. So
he also has Thiel Capital.
Yeah. And so this is an interesting article. We wanted to cover it on the show. It's called A Time for Truth and Reconciliation, and it's talking about what's going to happen in the new Trump 2.0 presidency. And so the lead is, in 2016, President Barack Obama told his staff that Donald Trump's election victory was, quote, not the apocalypse. By any definition, he was correct, but understood in the original sense of the Greek word apocalypsis, meaning unveiling, Obama could not give the same reassurance in 2025. Trump's return to the White House augurs the apocalypsis of the Onsen regime's secrets. The new administration's revelations need not justify vengeance. Reconstruction can go hand in hand with reconciliation, but for reconciliation to take place, there must first be truth. And this feels very tied to actually Eric Torenberg's prediction, which he shared with Molly O'Shea and that other analysis that we looked at. Nikhil Basu Trivedi wrote those. And Torenberg was saying he's predicting that there will be a Twitter files for the government. That there is, now that Elon's more involved and the Trump team is more aware of what they want to dig into, that there will be more documents that are declassified, more analysis of where the bloat is exactly. And it could be anodyne, just like, you see these reports all the time where it's like, oh, for some reason there's like some bus driver who's making 500K. And you're like, how did that happen? That's kind of odd. Like, it seems like there's like an aberration of like the government, or we talked about it in defense where it's like a toilet will cost $86,000 or like a screw will cost 20K. And all of those should come to light. But he also goes on to talk about some of the bigger kind of conspiracies and secrets within the government that people are clamoring for, and how do we grapple with stuff.
And it's interesting here because the audience very clearly was not tech X, right? He could have just posted this. It's a long form post. He could have put it on a blog somewhere.
Or done an interview with a tech person. Like he could have gone on Rogan to talk about it, but he also could have gone on a tech specific show.
So it seems, it's an interesting choice to say, I'm not going to go direct. I'm actually going to work with Financial Times and try to get this in front of a new audience that isn't necessarily rapidly consuming every word.
And so the Financial Times read by capital allocators, investors, business people all over the world.
Very international
audience. Beautiful. We should get a subscription here. It's pink. The pink sheets. You know this? Yeah, that's great. So he says, the apocalypsis is the most powerful means of resolving the old guards, or most peaceful means of resolving the old guards' war on the internet, a war the internet won. And I love that, because I haven't actually internalized that idea that there really was this massive war between we hear it with going direct versus traditional PR. We hear this versus censorship versus free speech. What does the town square mean? How do companies operate on the internet? Bitcoin. There's so many things that come back to this internet, and we've heard even Lena Khan and breaking up Amazon. It's just been a massive war in a bunch of little microcosms. And the war on the internet, this is a Coogan's Law coinage, I think. The war on the internet is how we should be thinking about what happened from the dot-com crash when the companies were seen as jokes and toys to now when they are ascendant, they are the most powerful platforms, and the people that founded them and invested in them are the most powerful people in the world, full stop.
And it's the phrasing is pretty on point too, because the internet is made up of platforms and individuals and profiles, and it really was profiles, like individual profiles were attacked, the platforms were attacked, the platforms were made to bend the rules of their platforms and go against, like, we saw this. Trump got booted off of Pinterest.
Yeah.
Like
wild.
And
like
Shopify. And
Shopify, yeah.
So it's like, you can't sell anything. You can't even organize pretty pictures and get inspo for your next home.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't want him doing anything. It was like full.
It was
out.
so clear that every big tech CEO is in a group chat together, and they were like, look, like one of them was like, we probably got to do this. And a bunch of them were pressuring each other.
The Pinterest thing is just so funny.
It's almost just like, I want to be a big tech company too. Like, oh, you're banned.
Can you imagine though if Trump was like, okay, I'm banned on X, I'm banned everywhere. I'm not going to do True Social and become and create billions of dollars of value. I'm just going to post on Pinterest. And it's like pretty pictures with him like smiling and then like
wild
handwritten.
Yeah. So he goes on to say, my friend and colleague Eric Weinstein calls the pre-internet custodians of the secrets the distributed idea suppression complex, or the DISC. The media organizations, bureaucracies, universities, and government-funded NGOs that traditionally delimited public conversation. In hindsight, the internet had already begun our liberation from the DISC prison upon the death of financier and child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2019. Almost half of Americans polled that year mistrusted the official story that he died by suicide, suggesting that DISC had lost control of the narrative. That was fascinating. I remember
it feels like he died a few years ago. It doesn't feel like
totally.
2019.
I was telling someone like, yeah, it's crazy that Epstein died at the tail end of the last Trump administration. So there wasn't really time for a reconciliation within that. And it immediately turned over. And it was very hard to say, oh, was that before COVID, after COVID? It was 2019. But do you remember when you first learned about Epstein? I remember
just as an individual.
Yeah. Like when did the story break?
It had to be the articles where there were almost like puff pieces back in the day of who is this mysterious financier, but it was I feel like I started to get an idea of who he was prior to understanding that he was obviously a criminal.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I found out about him through just straight up like conspiracy theory charts of like those pyramids, and it would be like aliens, Area 51, and like Jeffrey Epstein is conspiracy. Because when the whole Pizzagate thing boiled up, there was a lot of like, this is completely fake. But if you dig into the 4chan threads on Pizzagate, it's like 99% Epstein focused. Yeah. And Pizzagate was like an extension of that where like the conspiracy theorists were clearly onto something with Epstein, but then they kind of ran with it a ton. And then that deranged guy like actually shot up that pizza parlor that didn't have a basement or whatever. And then everyone was like, clearly the whole thing is fake. And that was partly wrong. But I remember explaining it to people.
Do you want the hat?
Yeah. I mean, I needed the hat at the time. I remember going to a New Year's party in like 2016 or something, and telling people like, oh, have you heard about this Epstein thing, the Black Book? All these people are flying on these planes. Like maybe Chris Tucker's involved. It's like the weirdest story ever. Yeah. Bill Clinton's been out there a bunch, and everyone was just like, okay,
you're also
dude.
like 20 or 30 years older than me.
Yeah, apparently. And everyone was just like, okay, dude, like that's a crazy conspiracy. And now it's like, oh yeah, I watched the Netflix documentary on Epstein.
That's
like, of course it's real.
That's a hard thing is after you've watched documentaries, which shows specific stories and they paint this thing. It's like, well, what is my memory of like real time reactions to what was being shared versus what did I just see after the fact? Yeah.
Such an odd time. But yeah, I mean, it really did become like just normie. Like it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. It's just history that there was an island and there was abuse and stuff.
And it doesn't seem like it's a conspiracy theory either that there has been a widespread effort within the government to control the information around that case and prevent it from being widely known. Yeah.
Well, that's actually where Thiel goes on to talk about. He says, it may be too early to answer the internet's questions about the late Mr. Epstein, but one cannot say the same of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. 65% of Americans still doubt that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Like an outlandishly postmodern detective story, we have waited 61 years for a denouement while the suspects, Fidel Castro, 1960s mafiosi, and the CIA's Alan Dulles, gradually die. The thousands of classified government files on Oswald may or may not be red herrings, but opening them up for public inspection will give America some closure. We cannot wait 6 decades, however, to end the lockdown on a free discussion about COVID-19. In subpoenaed emails from Anthony Fauci's senior advisor, David Morins, we learned that the National Institutes of Health apparatchiks hid their correspondence from Freedom of Information Act scrutiny. Nothing, wrote Baraccio in his medieval plague epic, The Decameron. It is so indecent that it cannot be said to another person if the proper words are used to convey it.
So, do you remember this?
Yeah.
They were misspelling words intentionally
Oh, really?
in the same way over and over so that when people would make a Freedom of Information Act request, the emails wouldn't surface.
Because
it was just, they would like very consistently had a
like
code.
COVID.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah,
I just flipped the letter, but I do it every single time. So when you search COVID, then nothing shows up.
Yeah, exactly.
But COVID is like the keyword. Interesting.
So crazy.
That is crazy. In that spirit, Morins and former chief U.S. medical advisor Fauci will have the chance to share some indecent facts about their own recent plague. Did they suspect COVID spawned from U.S. taxpayer-funded research or an adjacent Chinese military program? Why did we fund the work of EcoHealth Alliance, which sent researchers into remote Chinese caves to extract novel coronaviruses? Is gain-of-function research a byword for a bioweapons program? And how did our government stop the spread of such questions on social media? Our First Amendment frames the rules of engagement for domestic fights over free speech, but the global reach of the internet tempts its adversaries into a global war. Can we believe that a Brazilian judge banned X without American backing in a tragicomic perversion of the Monroe Doctrine? We were complicit in Australia's recent legislation requiring age verification for social media users, the beginning of the end for internet anonymity. Did we muster up even 2 minutes of criticism of the UK, which has arrested hundreds of people a year for online speech triggering, among other things, annoyance, inconvenience, and needless anxiety? We may expect no better from Orwellian dictatorships in East Asia and Eurasia, but we must support a free internet in Oceania. Interesting. Yeah, I remember when COVID first broke, and it was so funny because now it's become this like cause of the left. Like Taylor Lorenz, like you got to still wear a mask in 2025, et cetera. But it came from Balaji, who's like firmly on the right and libertarian. And at the time, before, like there was like a multi-week period where only tech was taking it seriously and some of the scientific community. And so my co-founders are PhDs in bio at Lucy, and they didn't see it. They're not super political guys. They didn't see it through like a political culture war lens. And so immediately I remember coming in and, talking about it. And we kind of knew that, okay, this is going to be crazy. Like the what's the R naught, the viral coefficient's very high, et cetera. But we just drew out a 2x2 graph and we were like, okay, is it Chernobyl or is it Fukushima or Pearl Harbor? Like, is this attack? Is this an attack or an accident? Is this intentional or an accident? And then on the y-axis you put, is this bioengineered or is this of zoonotic origin? Yeah. Because you could literally go and get a bat or a pangolin and then just be like, this pangolin is sneezing. Let's take it. Let's release it. Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't require any bio lab, crazy science, like amazing stuff, but it's still like very deliberate.
Yeah.
Then there's the other one where it's
if you
like,
look at the wet markets in China, they are foul, extremely foul.
Yeah.
Like
so immediately
you could easily imagine that something would happen, that it wasn't, that there is a could make a case that it was totally
and is still somewhat like the default narrative that's being pushed is came from an animal, totally accidental.
Yeah.
But if you look at the story, at the very least, it's like, well, the Chinese government knew that something was spreading and they didn't raise their hand and say, hey guys, we got a thing going on over here.
Yeah.
They actually I think they killed the doctor or something. It was like bad. Or they definitely were silencing people who were talking about it on social media, which is bad for us. And it's like, even if they did have Chernobyl, they did the bad thing of being like, no, we don't have an accident going on over here. And that's annoying and that's expensive.
And they did. We do know that the U.S. funded the work of EcoHealth Alliance, which sent researchers into remote Chinese caves to extract novel coronaviruses.
Yeah.
So we do know that was happening.
And so that takes it into like it's from the biolab type of thing.
Yeah.
This is engineered. Maybe there's gain of function going on where they're trying to juice it up. And then there's the question of, okay, so maybe there's an argument for, yeah, go do the research, create the superbug, and then create the antidote for the superbug. And then if the real superbug comes out randomly, you have the antidote ready to go. Cool. I can be like, okay with that under the right circumstances if it's clean. But it's like, did they have a Chernobyl-esque accident where they were doing this research and then it got out, which was like, you can't talk about that at all. And then the worst of all scenarios is this was engineered and released deliberately for a bunch of different reasons. And you can talk to a bunch of people that think about that. But what's weird is that this matrix of like 4 options, it was just like immediately like, it's got to be one of these 4. We should talk about all 4 of them. This isn't conspiratorial. Like what's actually going on? There's so little evidence. It's so unclear. You can't just immediately be like 100% zoonotic accident.
Yeah.
And yet that was what you were forced to say.
The fog of war like really takes quite a long time to dissipate. In some cases, never, right? Even with the JFK stuff, there was all these documentaries that were produced that each had their own take on the story. And so the result was that a bunch of information was put out there, but everybody was still deeply confused and you could make a case. And even with the fires this week, I was hearing yesterday from a close family friend that somebody was saying that their friend in the police force was saying that there was arson for the Palisades fire. And then it's like, well, we know there's arson for the Kenneth fire, but it's still unclear. Other people are saying that fire started in somebody's backyard and just ripped.
And I did this on the solo episode. I was like, how do fires start? There's a bunch of different ways. Lightning strikes, that's like the all natural version. There's power lines, so it could be on the electrical company. It could be arson. It could be someone having a fireworks or a backyard barbecue that went wrong.
There was a video of a kid in the Palisades throwing a bunch of gas on the fire.
Yeah. So that can be human and criminal. It can be a human accident. Like you could just be having a barbecue one day and something goes wrong, it's not even
a heater.
Yeah, it's not even negligent. It's just a complete accident, freak accident, but it's caused by a human. But like you should be able to immediately discuss all of these, and that was just not on the table for the first couple of years of COVID. There was actually an interesting turn of events when I noticed. Do you know Johnny Harris? He worked for the New York Times.
Misinformation.
Yeah, I mean he's very like left wing.
If you look in the comments of his videos, it's all here's 5 reasons why you're completely wrong.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, for a long time he was like I felt like he was kind of the cultural center of YouTube in the sense that like the average YouTube viewer was very into it. They're very well produced, but also just in terms of politically. Like he was basically center left. And for a long time, he couldn't talk about the lab leak theory. And then a couple years in, it was like Rogan had talked about it a bunch. They put the community notes on it. And then eventually it got to a point where the New York Times was reporting on the lab leak theory.
I mean, just the fact that
Johnny could put his...
Just the fact that the disc was so adamant at making sure that nobody thought it was a lab leak almost makes you think that
yeah, she doth protest too much is the phrase.
We should keep this.
Yeah, we need this here for this for sure. We pulled out the tinfoil hat, which we put on when we're talking about conspiracy theories. Let's move on. Darker questions still emerge in these dusky final weeks of our interregnum. Venture capitalist Mark Andreessen recently suggested on Joe Rogan's podcast that the Biden administration debanked crypto entrepreneurs. How closely does our financial system resemble a social credit system? Where were an IRS contractor's illegal leaks of Trump's tax records anomalous, or should Americans assume their right to financial privacy hinges on their politics? And can one speak of a right to privacy at all when Congress conserves Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, under which the FBI conducts tens of thousands of warrantless searches of Americans' communications? South Africa confronted its apartheid history with a formal commission, but answering the questions above with piecemeal declassifications would benefit both Trump's chaotic style and our internet world, which processes and propagates short packets of information. The first Trump administration shied away from declassifications because it still believed in the right-wing deep state of an Oliver Stone movie. This belief has faded. So I think what he's saying there is like, Trump wasn't going to declassify stuff because the right-wing deep state of an Oliver Stone movie, does that mean a deep state that is against the right wing? So if they declassify things, they won't be able to get stuff done because the deep state will be working against them?
think so.
I think that's what he's saying. I'm not exactly sure about that one. I was a little confused when I read that. He goes on to say, our Onsen regime, talking about the Biden administration and all the Democrats in charge, like the aristocracy of pre-revolutionary France, thought the party would never end. 2016 shook their historic faith in the arc of the moral universe. But by 2020, they hoped to write off Trump as an aberration. In retrospect, 2020 was the aberration, the rearguard action of a struggling regime, and its mogged by words.
By English. Every now and then we get
Stolberg
mogged
ruler.
by the English language, and
that's a German word, I'm sure. Come on, there will be no reactionary restoration of the pre-internet past, and that is really interesting when you think about 2020 as an aberration of the previous regime, in the sense that Biden was like super old and they didn't have a primary to try and install Kamala, and it was very just like thrown together. It felt like it was kind of chaotic and thrown together at all times. And so, I mean, I think everyone agrees that like the left will have to like completely retool. How does Bernie and AOC fit in? Completely rethink the strategy if they want to move forward and be successful, because the foundation has really, really cracked.
Yeah, it's interesting too. This week, I can't imagine that the images coming out of LA will be good for Newsom's political career, because they feel like sort of visual summary of his time running California. And he was a front runner to go for 2028.
Yeah, on Polymarket, he was with the Democrats. He was like 3%, 5%, like hovering around there. Like maybe they'll throw him in. Yeah.
Even you're saying this last election.
Yeah, this last election, it was like, oh, maybe Kamala won't do it, and Newsom will be the one, or Michelle Obama.
The only thing that I appreciate about Newsom is he knows how to put himself together in a crisis. Right?
He always looks
this
good.
Week we still put on our suits.
Yeah, and he has fantastic taste in food.
That's true.
He loves a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah, there was a AI generated image of him at Nobu, like looking at the disaster on his phone while the Nobu was like burning.
This is great.
Burning down.
Just going to Michelin star restaurants in the middle of the fire. The future demands fresh and strange ideas. New ideas might have saved the old regime, which barely acknowledged, let alone answered our deepest questions. The causes of the 50-year slowdown in scientific and technological progress in the United States, the racket of crescendoing real estate prices, and the explosion of public debt. So this is going back to the deepest question to Thiel is, what is the cause of technological stagnation? Perhaps an exceptional country could have continued to ignore such questions, but as Trump understood in 2016, America is not an exceptional country. It is no longer even a great one. Sad.
Ouch.
That hurts.
You can admit that and still love our country.
Yeah, for sure. Identity politics endlessly relitigates ancient history. The study of recent history, to which the Trump administration is now called, is more treacherous and more important. The apocalypsis cannot resolve our fights over 1619, referencing the 1619 project. But it can resolve our fights over COVID-19. It will not adjudicate the sins of our first rulers, but the sins of those who govern us today. The internet will not allow us to forget those sins, but with the truth, it will not prevent us from forgiving. Very interesting. So I think a little bit of the takeaway here is that the obsession over the JFK assassination might be a little bit of a distraction from moving forward. And there needs to be more of a focus on the recent history, as he says. There was a fascinating, did you see?
The future demands fresh and strange ideas. To me, that's Greenland, right?
That's a very good example.
The Arctic is melting. We want control over those trade routes.
And so related to this, Mark Zuckerberg just went on Joe Rogan. The episode just dropped this morning. And there's a quote here from Autism Capital. I didn't have a chance to print it out. But Zuck says, people in the Biden administration would call up our team and scream and curse at them. The emails are published. It's all out there. They wanted us to take down a meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV. Like that one?
Yeah.
At some point, Biden gave some statement where they said that Facebook was killing people, and then all these different agencies and branches of government started coming after our company. It was brutal. And so that's kind of the Zuck vibe shift that we talked about on Monday, where he appointed Dana White to the board and also announced community notes and moved the trust and safety team from California to Texas, and then also got rid of, give me the latest.
Completely eliminated DEI.
Yeah. no more DEI organization
Teams.
or targets.
Yeah.
So you can see that this is like echoing through, and it's fascinating because when Zuck came out, there was a lot of criticism, like, oh, he's like late to the party. Like Brian Armstrong was being brave about this in 2020. But if you talk to Brian, he's like, no, like it's great that he's here, and like 4 years is not that long. Like what we don't want is like the holdouts who haven't realized that the world has changed and aren't willing to shift. And so like I think that this is the Palmer Luckey thing with everyone's working on defense now. Like it's fine if you had a DEI program that was a mess in 2015, like move on and figure out what's actually a good way forward. You just don't want to be fighting tooth and nail to maintain the previous regime that was obviously very destructive. But fascinating article, highly recommend. I mean, we reread it all, so but it is free on the Financial Times. Fortunately, not paywalled for you bootstrap founders out there who are trying to keep burn low. Even though we recommend getting the paper delivered in print every day, you'll be able to read this one for free, which is great. Should we move on?
Beautiful.
Let's talk about a super viral post that went out, I believe on Monday, maybe Sunday. Vinay Hiremath says, I am rich and I have no idea what to do with my life. Here's a blog where I talk about leaving Loom, giving up $60 million, LARPing as Elon, breaking up with my girlfriend, insecurities, a brief stint at Doge, and how I'm now in Hawaii self-studying physics. And for those of you who might not know, Loom is a Chrome plugin that allows you to record your screen, record your face cam, and match those together. It's actually very useful if you need an employee or you need to send someone a little video of, hey, here's how I want this process done. A lot of sales guys use it.
I've used it a bunch for async design feedback. So if I get some design work done and then I can't talk through it live, I'll just send a 3-minute video being like, change this, this could be better. I don't like this color.
It's just way more flowing than trying to write out an email. It's just way easier.
It's interesting. I actually think when most of the time when I get a voice note from somebody, it annoys me because I'm like, well, you saved yourself time and now you're going to waste my time because you could have just summarized this over text. But when you get a Loom, typically there's actually some like meat in there and it can be convenient because it's saving you a phone call. Yeah. When somebody sends you a voice note, they're saving themselves time. Yeah,
it's often saving you a Zoom call because it's the whole screen share aspect of it is really important.
Loom is saving you a Zoom call.
Typically it's hard for me if you're giving that type of design feedback, you need to not only put all of your thoughts into words perfectly and then also share screenshots of, okay, this is the button I'm talking about, draw on it. It really does save a lot of time. It's a great product. And so they raised a lot of money. They grew the company really big. I think the biggest venture round was like over $1 billion, like 1.5 billion. They sold for $1 billion. And it was still a great outcome for the founders. Very clearly, the guy made a lot of money. And so let's look at his blog post. He says, life has been a haze last year. After selling my company, I find myself in the totally unrelatable position of never having to work again. Everything feels like a side quest, but not in an inspiring way. I don't have the same base desires driving me to make money or gain status. I have infinite freedom, yet I don't know what to do with it. And honestly, I'm not the most optimistic about life. I know this is a completely zeroth world position to be in. The point of this post isn't to brag or gain sympathy. To be honest, I don't know what the point of this post is. I tried to manufacture one, and I have an idea what it's about. I know the thing that you can chase. Vinay, I got your solution right here. Stay tuned. Then I recognize the irony of creating purpose out of a blog post when I don't currently have much conviction or purpose in life. So I'll just go ahead and explain my current situation for my own selfish purposes, to push myself to be completely and awkwardly vulnerable to a blob of nameless strangers on the internet. Last March, I had no idea what to do with my life. I found it very hard to give up a $60 million pay package. I had already made more money than I knew what to do with, but your mind does funny things when you start to consider numbers like this. So I decided to go to the redwoods and figure it out. Within 5 minutes of my first hike, the trees smiled at me and whispered their simple wisdom. What's the point of money if it not for freedom? What is your most scarce resource if not time? I would leave to do something, anything to be alive again. I had no idea, but I was hell-bent on making sure everyone knew I had it all figured out. So he spent 2 weeks after his tenure. 2 weeks after leaving an intense 10-year journey, he did what any healthy person does and met with over 70 investors and founders in robotics.
Wait, one note.
Yep.
So Atlassian, the company that bought Loom, they own Jira, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of context here. So he was like working at the company that makes Jira, very miserable software to use, was so painful that he couldn't stay for a couple years to make $60 million, an MBA level contract. Yeah. That just shows, honestly, one thing he could have done is said, hey, millions of people use Jira. I gotta make it my life's work to make this product. Say, hey, I don't want to work on Loom anymore. Yeah. I'm done screen sharing. I want to fix Jira, the cause of so much suffering in the world. I've
always said this, that you should never sell your company, but if you do, you should be sure that you're on the track to be the CEO of the acquiring company. And it's a completely different mentality. If you're a big company, like could you see Dylan Field being the CEO of Adobe if that deal went through? Absolutely. Would that be good for Adobe shareholders? Probably. Yeah. Would that be edifying for Dylan Field? Probably. Yeah. Would he be able to bring his team upward or
Dylan looking at Adobe being like, I want to work with Scott Belsky. Yeah. And I'm sure the two of them were like devastated.
But the big problem is like, of course, if you're like, the company's struggling, like get a acqui-hire done or you're stuck and you just need an exit, like do that. But if it's a deal where, you're getting, 1 to 10% of the company, they're like, on a market cap basis, set your sights higher and actually set yourself up to go in and dominate because you want to be a leader. You want to be at the top. You've been at the top your entire career as a founder. Yeah. Just because they stuff you in an office with an earnout and a boss as like VP of innovation or whatever. Yeah. If you're a real killer, you can get back on the corporate track and talk to the board and get the CEO fired, take over.
Hostile.
Yeah.
Get hostile.
Interesting technique. What's the best way to get your boss fired? If you want to move up and you know that it's just a corporate ladder and you just want to move up, best way to get your boss out of the picture, find a bunch of recruiters to recruit them away to a better job.
That's great.
So find executive recruiters. Oh yeah, my boss at
doesn't work if you're joining a founder mode. I think Atlassian is a founder mode company.
I think so too.
I don't think they're responding to, hey, so I saw you work in SaaS. Would you like to?
Yeah, but certainly if you're in the middle of the ladder, works every time. Yeah. Great strategy. And
recruiters are always looking for edges and insights. Yeah,
it's non-violent. It's not aggressive. It's just a little, and then, I'm getting a lot of job offers. Actually, I'm going to have, are you going to be okay? I'm going to leave. I don't want to abandon you on this team. You're going to have a lot more work. You're like, yes.
Really? That's interesting news. Yeah. That's like a Dwight from The Office style move. Or maybe Jim would do that to Dwight.
It's good. So he breaks up with his girlfriend, realizes. So
I was thinking maybe the purpose of the post was more of like using it as a dating app, kind of like a call to help for e-girls.
Close to my theory.
Call to help for e-girls, like, hey, any e-girls out there? Yes. I'm very lonely and lost, and I have $100 to $200 million.
Yes.
Like, reach out. I'll be in Hawaii.
So I think the maybe not the purpose of the post, but like the missing thing here is essentially fame and recognition. Loom is a cool company. We know about it, but it's not something that people talk about like Tesla. It's not a consumer product. Yeah. Even smaller, even like a Kettle and Fire has more mental mind share than Loom, even though it's probably a smaller company. Because they sponsor UFC. And so if you're just running into a random person in a bar and you're like, I'm the founder of Kettle and Fire, they're like, oh, I saw that at Erewhon. Like, that's amazing. That's sick. Cool. Yeah. I get that all the time with Lucy. People will be like, oh, I use those pouches. And we have like, tons and tons of customers. Much harder with a SaaS
Rubin
product.
Loves
exactly.
Lucy.
Exactly. Like,
I don't know if Rick Rubin loves Loom.
It doesn't happen as much. Yeah. And so, and that's a weird ego thing, but it's real. And there's this thing where a lot of people want money, and then once they have money, they want political power, and once they have political power, they want fame, and they kind of dance between all of these.
Yeah.
And so first off, I think like it's fine to want a public presence, to want to be known, to want to be widely loved and respected. And so, you're a good writer. I want to read more of these blog posts. So I would say, like, turn this into something, give this a try.
Yep.
Maybe this will work. And yeah, create some content, because there's already so many content creators, but you have the bona fides to put some cool stuff out there. And then also, just in general, I have this philosophy that, it's very difficult when people focus on just one metric of success. And they say, my happiness is tied just to my net worth, because if you get to the top of the mountain, you have nowhere to go but down. And the real best thing, are you familiar with like the Shepherd scale or Barber pole? I've talked about this theory. So basically, if you watch a Barber pole,
he's just making stuff up now, by the way.
Coogan's Law. The Barber pole theory of happiness is, if you look at a Barber pole, it's like striped like a candy cane, right?
Yeah.
And if you watch it, it looks like it's going up endlessly.
Yeah.
But what's really happening is that it's getting to the other side, and then it's kind of restarting the cycle. And a Shepherd tone does the same thing. I can play it. It sounds like really, really crazy when you hear it, because it's basically a whole bunch of scales that are playing at the same time. And so it sounds kind of like this. You hear how it's like sounding. It sounds like it's going up.
Yeah.
You can listen to this for hours, and it just goes up and up and up and up and up. And it's because some of them
kind of sounds like it's summoning a
here.
60 Mesoamerican demon.
It really does sound weird, but I like this as it's like a fractal pattern. Like, you see the fractal pattern. Fractal patterns
just make me start juggling.
Continue endlessly. And so I believe that you need kind of that philosophy in your life, because things are there's certain metrics. Like, if you have, your family life, your fitness, your fame, your wealth, all of those, they're going to reach the top of the mountain, and eventually some of them are going to decline. But if when you're cresting in your business career, you're having grandchildren, and you're getting more and more joy out of just the size of your family. Or when you're really young, it might be hard to make a lot of money, but if you're in peak physical condition, you're like, this is amazing. Eventually you're going to hit 50 and be like, I can't bench press what I could when I was 25. But at that time, your business career is going to be even better, and you're going to be making more and more money. So you'll be able to focus on like the new thing that's good. And so you need to be balancing all of those different sources of wealth, the types of wealth, so that you're raising one while the others are in decline if they happen to be. So you can always refocus. It's literally just moving the goalposts on yourself, on what makes you happy. What were you about to say? You wrote some stuff down.
We can kind of get into, I would say, I don't think he's asking for our advice, but you're getting it anyway.
We've
never been hesitant to give unsolicited advice. I mean, a few things. I mean, one, it's very normal for somebody who's hyper success and career oriented and mission oriented, like entrepreneurs are, to feel very lost when that journey ends, and landing at Atlassian and then becoming a cog in the Jira machine. It feels like very much like, okay, I'm no longer having this forward momentum. I went through that on a much smaller scale after we joined Row, where I just didn't feel like I was like, I'm 20, whatever, I was 26, 20, 27 at the time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm at my career is picking up. Felt like it was really ramping up, and then it felt like I slowed way down, because I was like, okay, I have a boss for the first time in my life. I'm working at a company where I only know like 5 out of like 250 people. Yeah. It just felt very strange. I felt lost. And I personally ended up doing the same thing, where I left earlier than we had originally structured. So I think it's totally normal to feel lost, and it's cool because he's now crowdsourced a ton of ideas and brought all this interest and intrigue into what he's doing.
Yeah, you should go read the whole post. But he went on to work at Doge and figured out that he didn't really like that. He went into robotics, but felt like he was LARPing as Elon. And then he wound up moving to Hawaii and is teaching himself physics, which is
and so I
weird.
think the high level thing that I think every entrepreneur, it's different where for him he's post-economic now.
Yep.
Doesn't need to start another company, doesn't need to get a job somewhere, doesn't need to work in the government.
Yep.
So I think the strategy overall should just be to do cool stuff. So that could take a bunch of different forms, right? That could be Elad Gil making monuments,
Yep.
right? He's still doing his thing on the investing side and incubation side. Could be doing a grant program like Justin Brother Mares, where Justin gives away money to people to try to change their life.
On the post-economic thing, I love that word. It's a very good phrase for, not needing a job, but I feel like I kind of hate it in the sense that when I look at the people that I look up to and respect, they are obviously post-economic in the sense that they're like billionaires, but they are not post-economic in the sense
they're
that
still
they're
players,
completely players in the game.
Yeah.
And to the point where if they have a down year, it's emotional. If they have an up year, it's amazing. They're really thinking about how to allocate their capital across every asset class. And they're thinking about it just as much as,
they're still trying to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
They're still active participants. They're still playing the game.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it happens when it's always hard when you jump multiple orders of magnitude in a very, very short a time, essentially overnight. I've noticed this with if you ever hire someone and you're running let's say 100-person startup, you can usually hire someone who's been at a 10-person startup or maybe even 1,000-person company, and they can kind of jump in. But it's hard when you pull someone from a 10,000-person organization into a 100-person organization, because everything about that job is different. Instead of if you're at a 10,000-person organization and you're a leader, you don't have a person for everything. You have a team for everything.
Yeah.
And at a 100-person organization, just think about is the Wi-Fi down? You might have an IT person. If you go down to a 5-person startup, it's you're doing it yourself.
You're going to Best Buy to get a Starlink.
Yeah, and if you're at a 10,000-person company, it's we have an IT team.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with money. You jump up
there's
3 orders of magnitude. It's as opposed to, a little bit more of what we've experienced in our career, where it's a more gradual accumulation of wealth. And so you're more acclimated to it. It's not this sudden wealth syndrome that's going on.
Yeah. The other thing that I've seen, especially in LA, the kids who got really big on social media, as teenagers, and then got jaded and didn't convert it into a business or anything like that. Those people really struggle because they've had the pinnacle of attention
and wealth,
and not necessarily wealth, true wealth, but income,
cash flow,
cash flow.
Yeah, it's just they got a $100K check from Google, from YouTube this month.
So if you're a teenager making $100K a month, and then 10 years later you stop doing YouTube because you didn't care about it, and then you have to, money doesn't even feel real in the same way. So this happens in crypto. People that get ultra wealthy from crypto, and they didn't really have to work hard to do it.
Totally.
They were smart and they had some luck. Those people end up just feeling incredibly lost because they're chasing that.
Yeah.
They're subconsciously sort of still chasing that high, even if they're not playing a game that allows them to get that high.
We've talked about this in the opposite case with the PayPal Mafia. Why is the PayPal Mafia so special? Obviously, they're all really talented business leaders and technologists, but specifically, it's they were kind of forced to sell their company after the IPO. They got liquidity, but then they all had these revenge narratives of I've been wronged. I could have been running something that I think PayPal's peak market cap is $100 billion, could easily be $1 trillion if they were still there. And it was they got that kind of taken away from them with all this chaos. And so they all went back in immediately because they had so much to prove. Because they were we were the .com wonder kids and we didn't get our full bite at the apple.
Yeah.
And so that's very different than
And they basically all went back to zero and all ran it up to public companies again.
Yep, exactly. It's
proving that
that's the goal.
Luck counts for something.
That's the goal. You get a couple $100 million. You
got so there's so many things imagine if Mr. Beast had started his content creation career with $100 million already in the bank.
Oh yeah.
And so so do something like that. I think that wouldn't be the worst idea to do a Peter Rahal style deal where, let's say Vinay buys
Give some background on Peter.
So Peter Rahal started RX Bar, sells it. like raises very little money, sells it for like $600 million.
Yeah.
Proceeds to wait like basically I think like 5+ years after his earnout and all that stuff, does like a bunch of growth equity investing, some venture investing, and then basically starts the same company again, more focused on protein, called David. And now he's running it up again. Like it'll clearly be somewhere probably $500 to $1 billion outcome again.
It's a way better product.
And it's an amazing product.
It's so good.
Peter's sending us some
I love it.
today, I think. So we're going to be eating it here with our Matina. And we're
I looked at the macros. It has like 40 grams of protein and like 200.
We should see if we can
calories.
survive on Matinas and
easily
Roar Water
easily
and
Volta Goo
and
Kettle and Fire
and David protein bars.
You can't survive on that. You can thrive on that.
So I would say, Vinay, your
stack.
strategy was spend all your money.
Yes.
And it creates such a crazy lifestyle, bloat and burn that you need to get back in the game just to survive.
I'm happy to run through that, but let's finish up. So the Peter Hall thing is like
Peter Hall
rebuild Loom,
rebuild the same company.
Yeah.
Build a Loom that automatically AI generates the video, so you don't even have to record it.
Yep, and it's something that you can hire all the best people. You already know all the products.
And you get back on the treadmill.
It's totally greenfield.
You're back on the mission. It's
great.
Just run it back again.
Yep.
So I'd like to see that.
I mean, that's also Nikita Beer. That's also a bunch of people that have done that stuff. It's not just
and it's
not just Peter.
The thing with so there's a mushroom on his blog, which is a bit of a red flag for me because psychedelics are very dangerous. They've been widely promoted by other podcasters, and they're people can experience tremendous benefits from them. But doing them while you're very lost and don't know what's going on can give you a bunch of false signals around what you should actually do, and you're hallucinating. Yeah. So it can tell you truths that feel real that aren't necessarily real. Yeah. And so even
it's like the opposite of grounding yourself. You're literally like having an out of body experience. You're like away from the ground. You feel like you're flying. The way to ground yourself is like go back and spend time with your family and your extended family. Because at a certain point, it's like even if you're running this life of like, you never have to work again. Well, like they're going to have real life problems and vicissitudes and all different type of things that they need to work through, and that can just make you a lot more human if you're actually like engaged with your community, and then your friends and whoever's in your network. Really growing that stuff will actually help you stay grounded. But did you have anything else before I go into my plan?
Yeah, I just think studying physics in Hawaii, very cool. Study your own physical form, right? Get really into bodybuilding, get your IFBB pro card
for sure.
Compete with, someone like Keith Raboy. Yep. Get to the absolute pinnacle of that. That's an entire mission that's not necessarily economically driven, but...
Do you know how many workouts Keith did last year?
Like 2 a day, so like 700.
It was like, I think it was over 1,000. It was the most insane stat. I looked at it and I was like, this can't be real. I mean, I understand he works out every single day, and he had a number of days worked out. It was like 364. I guess he missed one day. Yeah. But it's like, how do you do 3 workouts a day, dude?
Unreal.
Yeah, Mass Monster Arc is going to be fantastic. But yeah, get jacked.
I mean, there's just like, there's a lot. The get inspired by Nat Friedman, take 500K and create a public good out of it. Yeah, right? Yeah. So there's just so much stuff you can do that's not directly economic that can have tremendous impact, can be very motivating. And when I look at this stuff, these are all things I'm very excited to do, that we're excited to do through the show. Yep. Anyways, what do you got though? Because one thing that we love doing is spending money, and the timing for Vinay to come into this wealth, also as loud opulence becomes a dominant trend and quiet luxury is sort of fading into the background. It's great. The timing is pretty perfect to start spending some cash, especially, on the equestrian side, which I'm sure you'll get into. Yep. It's not easy or inexpensive to have a stable of championship winning racehorses, but he has the resources to do that.
Exactly. So yeah, I broke down kind of how I would spend the first 200 million to really get you back on the hedonic treadmill, because it seems like he's kind of fallen off. And once you move into, a Manhattan penthouse, you're going to be meeting people in the elevator saying, if I was just 1 floor higher, I should get back on the grind.
Yep.
Maybe I should call up Atlassian and
or
say,
you see them in the elevator and they've got some bags with them, and they're like, "Where are you going?" They're like, "I'm going to my house in Aspen."
Exactly.
And you say, "Oh, what neighborhood you're in?" You look it up on Zillow, and it's $50 million entry price,
yep,
right?
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's quarter of my assets. I got to actually get back in the game.
I got to get back in the game. So I broke it down into a couple different categories. You start with the real estate portfolio. Obviously, you're going to need a lot of properties. I recommend a mansion in Malibu, probably 25 mil. Yep. A Miami oceanfront estate, you might be able to get that for 10. Manhattan penthouse is 30. Aspen ski chalet is 15. Hampton summer estate 20. Lake Tahoe lakefront home 8 mil. Joshua Tree contemporary retreat for 5. And then you're going to need something in Hawaii that's going to be 12. And that's just in America. You might you might want the bug out village, some property in Montana or Alaska. You might want to go to New Zealand. That's going to be expensive, but beautiful.
Careful gentrifying Alaska though. They
will come for you.
They will come.
And so that's gonna take 125 million out of your pocket. Obviously, you can use debt, but you don't have a lot of cash flow at this point. So you're trying to burn down that. But the purpose poor, is real estate rich, and then that's justification for.
And not to mention, at this number of homes, you basically are running a company again, which is great. So you're going to get that. You're going to get daily one-on-ones, stand-ups.
Yep. You probably need a full-time real estate agent.
Just Slack for your, you might want to put a agent on the payroll and say, give me a little less commission, but I'll give you some cash flow.
Yeah. I mean, running an efficient family office is in and of itself a status symbol because so many of them are mismanaged and have tons of hangers on that are just collecting checks and doing nothing. You're also going to need some cars. I mean, you'll need these cars in every single house, but
I would say 3 for every house.
Yeah, but if you're just to build one 3-car garage, you're going Bugatti Chiron, Koenigsegg Jesko, Rolls-Royce Cullinan Black Badge. That's $7 million right there, and then you copy paste that a couple times with different
and you get some funky stuff. Get an old Ford Bronco drop top.
That's not going to completely run up the bill on you, but it's going to occupy your time.
Oh, and the key here is. Life is all about buying the right things, right? Yep. People say, "Oh, spend your money on experiences." Well, a one-of-one Bronco that's been refurbished and rebuilt is an experience every single time you get in it. It's an experience when you look at it in the garage, right?
Yep.
Anyway, so keep going down the list.
Yep. And so for watches, you could get a Patek Philippe Nautilus, 5990, Rolex Daytona Paul Newman, Richard Mille. You're in for 1.3 mil right there, just with the starter collection. And you might want 10, 20 different. We didn't even get into dailies, beaters, dress watches. There's so many different options there. In terms of firearms, I mean, you can't go wrong with the Meteorite 1911s. We've talked about those from Cabot Guns. A Singer 1911 could be $150K.
Go down to Arley in Beverly Hills. Get a
shotgun, a Browning 50 cal. That's going to be $50K. You're going to need licenses. This is all going to take up not just money but time.
Yeah.
And so while you're thinking about your next act, you're
key to a happy life is a busy life too.
Exactly.
You don't want to be too.
You want to be busy. So you could easily spend $5 million there. Then on horses, you're going to want to start breeding racehorses, ideally from the American Pharaoh line. But then you're also going to want a high-performance quarter horse for cutting, an Andalusian dressage stallion, an Arabian show champion.
It could also be cool to go out to Omaha, Nebraska, and literally buy every home surrounding Warren Buffett. And
that would be very cool.
Sort of like a castle wall type setup where you build it. Basically, for Vinay, he would be able to look down on Warren Buffett and start picking up through osmosis some he's got to manage his family office, pick up some investing techniques, but you'd also be able to mog one of the world's most successful and wealthiest men, which Vinay might like. He maybe hasn't done that before.
Walking around the neighborhood, strolling around on top of your quarter horse, he's going to have to stop and say hi.
Absolutely.
Or if he hears
he's going to pull up in your Camry.
Yeah, if you pull up in he's in the Camry, you're in the Jesko.
Every time he starts his Camry
Vroom, vroom.
and you hear it kind of start up, you start up the Jesko.
The Jesko.
And it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And then the quarter horse gets a little skittish. As the Jesko's ripping. Then, obviously build a wine collection. You're going to want an expansive cellar featuring top Bordeaux first growths, Lafite, Mouton, Petrus, iconic California cult wines like Screaming Eagle, Scarecrow. This blends revered old world European traditions with cutting edge American viticulture. You're going to spend $5 million on that easy.
And get a sommelier.
Get a sommelier full time.
$150K a year.
Have them travel with you.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into how you're traveling, because for 200 mil, it's really hard to justify a G650. So you might have to go fractional private jet ownership.
Talk to Preston.
But there are some good options there. You've heard us, talk about net jets before.
Sort of a touchy subject for our audience, but
if you've spent this much on cars and guns and houses, it might just be the right mix for you until you get that second.
Yeah.
That this is the base hit. We're looking for the home run that gets the BBJ. And then of course art collection. You're going to want a curated set of works. You could go Andy Warhol, Basquiat. You could go older, and it's just going to get more expensive. But you could easily put up $50 million just decorating your homes. So
each home.
Yeah.
So he's going to really have to stretch and try to budget. And
I'm assuming a lot of debt comes in here to really multiply it. A lot of leverage. Maybe you're actually in control of maybe $1 billion of assets, kind of a 5-to-1 debt to equity ratio.
One thing that's priceless too is having an enemy.
Yep.
If Vinay has had enemies, they've basically been forced to listen to the soundtrack of his success for the last few years.
Yep.
But picking new, bigger enemies.
Yep.
He could pick somebody like Rick Caruso. He could try to come in and start competing and outbidding Rick Caruso.
I mean, the other side of this is that he's working for Atlassian. You could go and say, you know what, DHH, you got the Aston Martin Valkyrie. I'm going to beat you on the track. You run Basecamp. It's directly competitive.
It is.
I'm going to crush you on the track. I'm going to get 3 Valkyries.
Wow, actually.
I'm going to engine swap a couple of them, lower them, modify them.
You know that shot of the DHH has of his like crazy view?
Make it even better.
That's right in the fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Hope he's okay.
Hope he's okay.
I like to joke around, but that is rough if that's true. But yeah, I think DHH, he puts a lot of time in on the track. He has some amazing records, and I'm sure he's going to break all of them with his new Valkyrie. Get your own Valkyrie, break his records, show him who's boss, and then go back to Atlassian and say, we're coming for every single Basecamp customer. And I will be CEO of this company. Yeah. Once I destroy Basecamp.
Yeah, Basecamp has said they'd never sell, but if you take
100% of their customers, they will go out of business.
Yeah.
And DHH will be forced to sell his Valkyrie to you.
Yeah.
But you'll already have 3.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you can have too many Valkyries though.
No. You want to corner the market really. Because you take them, you race them so fast, you're crashing a bunch of them. But every time you crash one, lowers the amount, so raises the market price. So there's an efficient point where crashing the Valkyrie, drunk driving or off-roading it, taking it on the Dakar, taking it on the Gumball 3000. This can actually be positive for your net worth.
Yeah.
And that's great. The other option would be to pick a low status nemesis. I'm sure this post went mega viral. I'm sure there's some haters, some quote tweeters. Pick one of them at random.
Go one by one.
Revenge is a dish best served call. Yeah.
Ripping apart their careers and their...
Oh, you're starting a little lifestyle business? Wouldn't it be a shame if I raised $500 million and destroyed you?
Category.
Exactly. You got a blank check.
Yeah, we didn't have it on here, but raising a mega seed round is usually a good way to cheer you up. So
I agree.
So, and he could definitely get that done in a day. In a few hours.
Or
we would back
a growth fund, start a hedge fund. I mean, the growth fund, it depends on who you want to talk to, but the seed fund, you're talking to a lot of founders. Some of them are going to be like very low quality just by nature. Some of them are going to be amazing and you get in early and that's cool. But like, if you really just want to hang out with really interesting entrepreneurs who are already de-risked, like growth fund.
Yeah.
Raise a big growth fund and just rip checks into blue chip companies, and you'll be on the phone with all the best people and hang out with them.
And it's fine if you make one investment a year, so you can study physics and then rip checks.
Totally. It's great.
Anyways, Vinay, proud of you.
Yeah,
proud of you for talking about your feelings.
Good luck on 20-minute VC.
Let us know if you want to join the show. Call in. Or we'll come hang in Hawaii.
Yeah. And we'll go shopping with you.
We'll take you shopping.
Bring your checkbook. Bring your wire instructions. Because the check is just going to be too many zeros to fit in the box.
To fit in the check, yeah.
Bring one of those big checks, actually.
Yeah.
Bring a huge check.
Bring your YubiKey key or whatever, so you can just rip stable coins.
We're going to Mercedes, we're getting you an AMG 1. We're going to Aston Martin, we're getting you a Valkyrie. We're going to Bugatti, we're getting you a Tourbillon. We're going to Mercedes, we're getting the SL300, Gullwing. We're going to Ferrari, we're getting the F80. We're going to McLaren. We're getting the W1.
We're going to Geneva and we're buying the Patek store.
Yes.
We're making them an offer they cannot refuse.
Yes. I mean, we talked about who's that hedge fund guy that bought a watch company? I love that. He owns the watch.
Oh, it's the guy who's always getting angry.
Perfect.
Herbalife.
Yeah.
Why can we not remember his name?
Pershing Square is this fund? I don't know. Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman.
That was gonna be.
It's
bad.
hard. It's hard.
This
is not an AI generated show, folks. So we gotta. Sometimes we blank. Sometimes we get mogged by the English language, and other times we just blank on someone that we see every single day on the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some Q&As. Let's go to questions from the fans, from the brothers, from the brotherhood. Ben Kohler, our vice president, posted some behind the scenes footage of you dancing and me playing Tetris. And Chris
on the Mod
asks,
Retro,
what kind of shoes are on Jordy's feet? And is this a real word? Is this the word for what you were wearing?
I don't know.
Category of shoe.
Chris has been deeply within the world of high-end equestrianism, and he's grown up in loud among.
And I mean, his profile photo, he's wearing a tux. So love him.
So anyways, I'm wearing those are some Bottega Veneta slides. Picked them up a couple years ago. They're some of my favorite shoes.
Yeah.
Kind of dress them up, dress them down. You can wear them to the beach. You can wear them to a nice dinner. But I actually love the shoes so much that we are working with my friend Devin to develop our own TB branded version of those exact slides.
Fantastic.
So, Chris, keep an eye out if you don't want to spend $1,500 on
potential
the Bottegas.
Beta tester. Send him a
you can get these. We're going to make them a lot more, accessible, but still very fairly priced.
That's great. So if you head to the Bottega Veneta store, tell them the Technology Brothers sent you.
Yeah, the Bottega store actually made it in the Palisades.
Oh, that's great.
Where I bought them. Yeah. Everything around that development burned down except for the Bottega.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, emergency supplies.
Yeah.
We got another DM. It says, I'm joining a startup about over $1 billion in market cap. Should I focus on a narrow set of skills or try and work across teams and functions? What do you think, Jordy?
Wow. You're joining something that already has a $1 billion market cap valuation.
Yep.
This screams corporate athlete to me. It's
Yep.
somebody that needs to get in there and make stuff happen,
Yep.
work cross-functionally.
Yep.
Own some key product areas, strategies,
Yep.
whatever you need to do. But think go in there as an athlete, outwork everybody, train your mind,
Yep.
get into the office earlier,
Be flexible.
leave later. If it's a work from home, flexible work policy, never work from home.
Yep.
Just don't.
Yep.
Show up on Saturdays.
Yep.
Slack you're the CEO on Sunday morning at 5 a.m. and say,
want to get a workout in.
Door to the office is locked. Could you come open it up for me? And if they say, we might be able to get somebody from maintenance over there, just say, if you have a second, it'd be great if you could just get down here. So establish that level of, seriousness with not only your CEO, but, everyone else on your team that it's free to outwork everybody. It costs a little bit of time, but it's free to outwork your peers. And if you're in an organization like that, you're joining. There's hundreds of people already. You need to really put yourself on the map.
Yeah. When I first got introduced to the term corporate athlete, it was from a CFO I was working with who was describing some of the finance folks, like the strategic finance guys that would come in and as corporate athletes in the sense that they were good at spreadsheets, but that skill set of analysis, management, strategy could be applied basically anywhere in the organization. You can drop that person in the marketing team, run some analytics, see what's working, cut things, but also on the product side, really anywhere.
It's like a midfielder.
Yeah,
football,
and we've
soccer.
seen this. I mean, we were just talking to Calvin over at Ramp. I think he was on the engineering team. Now he's running marketing. That is a transition that I think people think is like so crazy, but it's actually
have good taste.
Yep.
Good decision making.
Yep.
Deeply analytical.
Yep.
Very hard working.
And ability to drive outcomes.
And ability to study the experts. Like if you want to learn marketing, go
Ogilvy,
listen to
founders.
Andrew Huberman. Go look at Rob Mower's feed.
Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
So yeah, I think the obvious obvious answer here is sleep on an 8 sleep. You're a corporate athlete.
Yep.
Sleep on an 8 sleep.
Yep.
Get those sleep scores up. Wear a Whoop band.
Yep.
If track your stress throughout the day. If you're not getting stressed, you're not working hard enough. You're not taking on enough responsibility.
Yep.
So make sure you're stressed.
Chug your Monte
and
constantly.
it's free to outwork your peers. So go get in there and do it.
Yeah. I got another question. I didn't get a chance to print it out, but it's essentially here. I have it here. I'm working at a VC firm and I'm considering joining the Trump administration. I'll be working for one of the billionaires that's heading up one of the organizations. What can I do to stand out as I join the admin and really make a statement on my first day at work? What do you think, Jordy? When you're coming into a new organization, how can you earn the respect of your boss, and how can you set the tone for what might be a short stint, since these political jobs, usually it's 4-year stint at most?
So going into the admin in this
Going
case?
into the admin,
so what I would do,
working for a big shot in a different role, how do you stand out on day one?
When you are watching a sporting event, who do you notice in the crowd?
Guys with the chest painted with the American flag?
Chest and face painted.
Yeah.
Face painting is key.
Okay.
Chest requires you to go shirtless. Not every office environment is that conducive to being shirtless.
Yep.
But the thing that you can obviously do in this situation is paint the American flag over your face and add stars to it. So don't just settle at 50 stars, because that just shows you're not very ambitious.
And you're not
add
tapped
54.
into the discourse.
So take the picture that you posted.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not tapped into the discourse if you're not putting 54 stars, right?
Yeah.
So moon, Greenland,
Panama Canal,
Canada. Panama. I actually spent a bunch of time in Panama surfing over the years, and great place. We could add them.
Okay.
Show that ambition. 54 stars plus at least. Full face paint.
Yeah.
Hair dyed.
Yep.
Mohawk.
Yep.
And you're gonna actually want to shave the side of your face to get the flag to fully stretch around your face, right? And then leave the hair. Dress that up. Make yourself look like a stallion. And then just do that every day. So it's going to cost you. You're going to have to bring in a Hollywood makeup artist, bring him out to DC, and pay him whatever it takes, right? And Doge, they've got these sort of rotating appointments too, where you're only there for 3 months. So if the makeup artist costs $500 a day, only there for 3 months, very worth it. You're going to be a little bit in the red, but you can probably day trade your way back into the green.
That's good. That's a good call. So my advice was gift your boss a gun on day one, AR-15 that's wrapped with the American flag, because there's a lot of
Ben.
Yeah.
If you want to make a statement.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, we're still in the post-pandemic work from home era. Even if everyone's in the office, a lot of what the government's doing is communicating with organizations that aren't in DC, corporations and other arms of the government. And so you're going to need a nice Zoom background. You put an AR-15 on the background, just immediately lets everyone know you're 2A.
Yeah, and a good thing is, even in the government, they do work from home quite a bit.
Yep.
So if you know you're going to be on Zoom calls, go get a Starlink, post up at the local range.
Yep.
And when you're not talking on the call, be drilling the target.
Oh,
100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, mile out. And that will just show a level of, you're going to relate to your peers better that might enjoy guns. If people don't enjoy guns, they're going to say, well, this guy's could defend me in a hostile situation. Yeah. So it's a good way to build, relationships and establish dominance on Zoom specifically.
And so
don't mute either.
Yeah, you want to hear the shots ring out. There's already so much AI that goes into the voice processing on Zoom. I'm sure it'll handle the loud noises. But you want to make a statement. You want to come in, let people know what you're all about. Keep the cadence up. Well, speaking of America and international relations, TikTok says it plans to shut down the site unless the Supreme Court strikes down the law forcing it to sell. So TikTok will not sell. And AG Hamilton 29 says the fact that China/the CCP via ByteDance would rather choose to close the platform than give up control of it in exchange for a substantial payday kind of tells you everything you need to know about what they see is the real value of it. Fascinating.
Yeah, Steinman said in poker they call that a tell. Steinman's been right a lot lately.
He has.
Got to give him credit for that.
He has.
Yeah, I used to be the owner of bandtalk.com.
Yeah.
Sold it for about what I put into it. I thought it wasn't getting banned.
Yeah.
Now somebody's going to make an absolute killing. I talked about this. You could make kind of a vampire app where you clone TikTok and sort of recreate the social graph for people and just say, hey, come over here, start posting. But I hope it gets banned. It's absolutely insane that, we wouldn't want China directly controlling, one of the top 3 largest media companies. Yeah. And and TikTok is objectively one of the biggest media companies, even though it's a social media platform. Yeah. So it's absolutely insane.
The comp is, would you be okay with the USSR controlling NBC during the Cold War?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Obviously
and
not.
Unfortunately, I've spent time in China, and they do not allow our social media platforms over there.
Yeah.
So
there's just a little bit of reciprocity there.
Yeah. Let's just keep it even.
It's also just extremely redundant at this point because every feature has been copied by YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels. And so there's a lot of people that are like, but what about the small businesses that are built on TikTok?
The attention will just shift.
The attention will shift. They'll be okay.
If you were building your small business on the CCP's platform and not thinking about going elsewhere.
Have you seen those recent deep dives on TikTok Shop? How people are just straight up selling drugs via the TikTok Shop. It's there's just no.
That's
moderation.
the thing. China has no interest in. There's probably the number one fentanyl dealer is probably TikTok. Yeah, literally.
It's wild. Anyway, let's move on to Ann Lee Skates. She says the consumer founders secret AI master plan. Give us some context on Ann.
Ann's great. She was at Andreessen, helped lead our round, and now has her own fund.
Cool.
Very, very sharp on all things consumer. She was a part of the group that did Whatnot, which just raised a new round at $5 billion. Wow. So an absolute dog of a company. Yeah,
no need for TikTok Shop. They're probably going to be way up after the TikTok ban.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah. You got to go scoop up some secondary right now. As we know, 2025 is the year of agents. Much has been said about relationships with AI agents as the new moat, but the big platforms of tomorrow will be what I call trusted recommenders. And Signal, she's quote tweeting Signal, says, the next generation of companies will be full stack, vertically integrated from content creation to software delivery. This is the ultimate play for customer loyalty, engagement, and retention. It aligns. Something.
Yeah, so Anne is saying... I just pulled it up because it's actually a thread. Doesn't seem like we got it. AI changes the strategic moats, revenue, and profit generation of internet companies. Intimate AI meets human relationships via trusted AI agents will emerge across many consumer verticals and apps. I just would say this is obviously the most exciting time to be a consumer investor in a really long time because many of the biggest outcomes in venture are consumer. Look at Coinbase, Chime, things like that. And so, Perplexity valued at almost $10 billion. They're very agentic in many ways, like the browser company. A lot of their new stuff is more focused on that. Yeah. And so her theory here is that AI agents will become effectively recommenders. So recommending actions, recommending products and purchasing decisions, helping you develop habits. You could have styling apps. We saw this launch last week. There's going to be everything from agentic relationships for consumer fintech that's recommending you the right mortgages, right? So you're not going and just Googling, you're in an app being hey, I want to get a mortgage.
Yeah, everybody who's talking about building something that was look at everything in your credit card statement and help you understand which credit cards you should be using for what. Yeah. Should you switch to a different credit card? That type of stuff. All of that makes a ton of sense. Autopilots are everywhere.
Yeah, and Gary Tan in the comments tagged Happenstance, which is, I believe it's a YC company that's basically helping you find connections within your network and get intros and stuff like that. So I would say this is probably the most exciting time to be a consumer investor. It shouldn't even call yourself a consumer AI investor just because every AI is going to impact everything.
Yep.
So shout out to Anne. Thank you for the thread. They make these shows possible.
That's great. Let's do a promoted post.
Promoted post from Sai Sack. Sai says, looking for someone who knows the ins and outs of CAD and PLM while also really enjoys teaching, training, and enabling other engineers. The job will help up-level and accelerate the 1,000 plus hardware engineers here at Anduril Tech. Roll in the thread. So Sai is over at Anduril, and this looks like a really cool opportunity for somebody who likes teaching other people and upskilling their peers. So go send a note to Sai over at Anduril and check it out.
That's great. Let's do a bucket poll. We got Antonio Garcia Martinez, who says, trust fund kid in SF LARPing as a VC is such a type. And Jonathan says, LP equals loving parent.
Loving parent.
I love
there
that.
Are, I do think it's, we are pro nepotism, but we're generally pro helping people. So if you have children, family, friends that you want to help them, and then also help a bunch of random strangers. And I think that's the great part about tech is there's, to use a random example, somebody like Vinay, right?
Yeah.
If he has a family member who is, starting a new startup,
set him up with a fund,
invest in their company.
Yeah.
But he's also going to help somebody who he doesn't know, right? And that's the beauty of tech. So if you want to get into venture investing and you have some loving parents, make them your LPs.
Also, I mean, a million times better than LARPing as a philanthropist, nonprofit person. Just
it's also way cooler. I mean, we could do a whole episode of like how we want to approach finance with like our kids.
Sure.
But I do think it's cooler to, invest in your child's fund.
Totally.
Like if my daughter wants to go into venture, say, cool, here's a $10 million fund and you're going to get management fees, but that's a lot cooler than just giving them a trust fund that they have to,
Also, I mean, like you got to build a track record at some point. The first investments are probably going to be rough. They're going to figure all this stuff out. And
better to figure out on your parents' dollar. Incinerate your family's capital.
Hopefully not that bad. I mean, if you're in SF, a lot of ways to return the fund if you get lucky or are in the right group.
All it takes is one. Many solo GPs quit right before a 100-bagger.
Yep, exactly. Let's go to Near Cyan, friend of the show. She says, I've never met a self-made billionaire who hasn't drank Diet Coke. I love this.
Great post.
And
we got to do a whole deep dive on Diet Coke.
Stack.
We maybe do like Diet Coke episodes where it's every new 1,000 listeners.
We should be drinking Diet Coke. Yeah.
Yeah. So
mix it in. So I realized why Diet Coke is so powerful and why it uniquely helps billionaires more than just the average person that just goes and gets a Diet Coke from, McDonald's.
Yeah.
And here's why. So Diet Coke has about, I believe, 30 to 50 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
And so it's a very low dose. It's not like a Celsius. It's not going to take you to the moon for 2 hours and then you're going to crash. But if you're a billionaire, you will have someone bringing you Diet Coke constantly throughout the day. Yeah. And you will have a fridge with Diet Coke all the time. And when you get in your chauffeured car, there will be a Diet Coke waiting for you that's cold. There will be Coke on board. Whereas if you're just living a normal life, you might have a few Cokes throughout the day. The billionaire's Diet Coke habit, is constant stimulation right at that 30 milligram level.
Yeah, and it's so good because think about it. So 300 milligrams of caffeine right at once for a lot of people doesn't feel that great.
Yeah, you're jittery.
300 spread throughout 10 hours feels fantastic.
Exactly. So it's basically the extended release version of caffeine.
Yeah.
And so there's been a little bit of a horse race in the energy drink category to get more and more higher doses of caffeine.
Yeah.
But maybe the secret to true outperformance, that's why I like the yerba mate, because it's 100.
Ben,
and so you can drink a couple of those.
Could we get a couple?
Yeah, let's get a couple more caffeine beverages on the set. We're thirsty. I'm genuinely thirsty. I need some more caffeine. I can feel myself dropping. I wish I had 5 Diet Cokes in front of me. Yeah. But I do think that there is something specifically powerful about
a Diet Coke.
That's probably terrible with the carbonation.
The carbonation
so
is
bad.
absolutely brutal. 2 is
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And so, so good. And so there is something very specific about the continuous nature of consuming Diet Coke that you see Elon and other billionaires do.
Yeah.
And that's actually
everybody can learn
harder to do. It's not just a cost thing, because you can go to Costco and get a whole flat of Diet Coke. It's like you have to rearrange your entire lifestyle to have cold Diet Coke available to you all day long. But if you do that, you will have the perfect level of caffeinated blood in the brain the whole day. So
okay,
I love that.
One more thing on Near. Another post. So Near says, we are very excited to release our LLM wrapper, hopefully this month. I think it will be the most novel and interesting interaction normal people have had with LLMs so far by a favor of 10. Remember when the iPhone was new and there were all those app guys and they just made an app and somehow pulled in millions of dollars with no effort? Well, guess what? The days are back, and all it takes is a good wrapper.
That's so sick.
Claude and I call it the art of the wrap.
That's so sick.
Near has a new app coming out.
Go follow. If there's a wait list, get on it. We want to
Near's
support
awesome.
Near.
You know, they also had the NVIDIA fund. That was just a 10-year duration fund that just would buy NVIDIA.
Okay. Oh yeah,
and
that's
it's
right.
It's up.
Yeah,
obviously
300%.
crushing it.
Amazing.
But you can't sell for 10 years.
Okay.
You just have to hold it.
That's great.
So very cool. But looking forward to this. Near's a big Claude enthusiast, so I'm excited to see what the app is.
Oh, this is a controversial one. We don't normally talk politics, but Riva's a friend, so we got to do it. Riva says, I
don't think this is politics.
Okay.
This is facts.
Facts. Okay. Here are some
centered
facts
around policy.
Here are some facts
which
for you.
Impacts business owners, capital allocators.
Yeah. And a lot of tech
owners.
is in California.
Yeah.
You do not hate California's government enough. California has the highest poverty rate at 13.2% of any state, despite being the fourth largest economy in the world. This poverty, despite the state having an annual budget of $297 billion, the most significant state budget in the United States. That poverty, despite the highest spending on public welfare programs in the United States, just under $100 billion annually. All of its failures, despite a progressive income tax system of up to 13.3% and a state sales tax rate of 7.25%, both the highest rates in the nation. Despite all those taxes, California ranks 48th for road conditions, with 44% of roads rated in poor condition. Despite all those taxes, California education ranks below average in national assessments for math and reading proficiency. Despite all those taxes, California's violent crime rate has risen by 16% since 2019, while most of the nation has seen rates declining. Despite all that money, upgrades to state grid infrastructure have been slow to scale and have not hit stated annual targets. California's failures are endless, far beyond the fires. Do your own research and stop voting for this lunacy. Very sad.
So growing up in the Bay Area and then living in LA as an adult, you don't even have to know those facts specifically to have experienced them.
Yep.
Like if you think of the wealth creation and the prosperity in many ways of the last 2 decades and the current state of things on the ground when you just drive around LA. Like I joke that the G-Wagon is so popular in LA because the roads are so bad that you want a 4-wheel drive with like good clearance because you're driving around and it's just constant and it's just pure government rot and incompetence, right? It's not a budgetary issue for any of these things.
Yep.
LA spends $1 billion. The city of LA spends $1 billion. It's not even the county. The city of LA spends $1 billion a year on the homelessness issue. And the irony of the budget last year was that $500 million of it didn't even get spent. They were trying to spend because they just failed to actually put it to work. So we had the budget. The homelessness issue is still obviously terrible, and they just couldn't even put the money to work.
Yeah. If
you're a VC, your LPs would be like, sorry, dude, you clearly can't get into any deals. Like, you're done.
I always think about the government stuff. I mean, people always say, do we need more budget or less budget? And it always sounds like, oh yeah, if we just had more money to solve this problem, it'd be better. And I think about it like the metaphor is, imagine like one of those giant trash cans and you're trying to throw a crumpled up ball of paper into the trash can. And it's like, yeah, if my tax dollar goes in the big bucket, it's in the pool, but I really need to get it into a Solo cup inside the trash can in order to actually have an impact with that.
That's
money.
a good way to kind of put this in, a way that the brothers will be able to understand.
And so
crushed up.
Yeah. And so it's like you throw your dollar in the big trash can. There's a chance that it could go in the Solo cup and actually solve the problem and actually repair a road. But 90% of the time, it's just going to get stolen. Yeah, and just get burnt or spent on something ridiculous. And you see that with the California high-speed rail and the fire stuff and just everything. Yeah, it's just interesting. Like they're not actually outcome driven, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw a whole thread as well that was basically arguing that our inability to put out these fires in densely populated areas is just a symptom of societal collapse. Yep. And people have this idea of collapse as being these sort of apocalyptic scenarios, but just the nature of having fires rip through highly residential areas and have the fire hydrants not work there was another video of a helicopter just like dropping a bunch of fire retardant or water on just like on a person.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just like a fair mistake.
Yeah.
But it's, this goes back to the Peter article that we wrote of like, let's stop rehashing, the past and doing land acknowledgements for stuff that happened 200 years ago. And let's focus on, the next 100 years, right? And how do we make the whole world better for everyone?
Yeah. So. I do have a bit of like a insensitive hot take about the fires, but it's more of like a thought experiment. So I've always thought that one underrated reason to support the Second Amendment is not like, if you talk to the Second Amendment people, they'll be like, you need the guns to hunt. I should be able to hunt. Then they say home defense. And then the last thing they say is like, it's a backstop against a tyrannical government. Yeah. So if the feds come, you can defend your territory if it's truly a tyrannical government. But I've always thought that maybe like there's a better argument around like, if America is invaded, it would be a complete bloodbath because we'd have the best militias and the insurgency would be insane. Like just taking, imagine the Battle of Dallas. Like if like Russia or China like lands in Texas and is like, we're going to try and take over Texas. It's like, they're going to have to deal with the military, of course, but then every single house that they go to is like filled to the gills with guns. Right. Yeah. And so my thought experiment was like, should like, obviously everyone evacuated and that was what the government recommended when the fire started. And that's what was rational. And that's what we did. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't have evacuated, but just in terms of actual firefighting strategy, is there a world where everyone stays, or at least all the able-bodied men stay, and just turn on all the hoses at their houses and just hose down every little ember that goes?
That's what my neighborhood does. We have our own like...
Everyone, it's like firefight your own house as long as you possibly can. Then the firefighters show up and they do what they can and fight the brush interface. Yeah. But everyone's responsible for like staying as long as possible and get the women and children out with the priceless valuables and the pictures and stuff. But the able-bodied men stay and hose everything down. And if they have a fire extinguisher, you just try and put it on an ember when it comes down. If there's a tree, you just do your best. And if everyone's there just firefighting, would that actually work, or is that just a complete fool's errand? Am I an idiot? I don't know.
No, I think it's high risk in that there would be a higher loss of human life.
Totally. Because someone's going to get a tree fall on them or something.
Yeah, it would generally work. I mean, so...
But that's like a cultural thing. Like we don't think about a society like we think like evacuate, you know, which is good because like the houses can be rebuilt and the death toll was fortunately very low. Yeah. It feels like a 9/11 event, but the death toll's so low.
Somebody was telling us in a group chat earlier that a friend of theirs stayed at their house in Sunset Mesa, which is like between the Palisades and Malibu, and just fought and every single house
burned
around them burned down, but they saved theirs.
Wow.
Which is almost like, what's even the point? Like, you want to live in the rubble of your neighborhood for 3 years? It's like very toxic too.
Oh, right? Totally, yeah.
And but yeah, my neighborhood has a volunteer fire brigade, and they train, you know, like kind of frequently. There's a group of
I would like to get that going in my neighborhood. Just like a little bit of a plan. What can we do?
Yeah, I walk through with my neighbor being like, he's like, this is where the hoses are if I'm not here. You know,
everyone in the neighborhood, here's how you clear brush in your own backyard. Then here's how you fireproof your house a little bit more.
My neighborhood uses goats to clear brush in the land above our neighborhood.
I was saying
so we bring in like literally like 500 goats, which is super cool for the kids because they get to see like 500 goats just milling about eating grass.
I know there's going to be a ton of regulations about, we can't get rid of the brush because it's natural and it's hurting the brush species or whatever. And I'm like, I just want to turn goats loose everywhere.
we need to airdrop millions of goats into the Santa Monica mountains.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that and hearing stories of, a goat chewed through my F40 tires, you know.
Yeah. I want the fattest mountain lions. Just
feasting.
Just obese mountain lions from eating all the goats. Cats, but they just can't, they just get their fill and they just keep eating because there's just so many goats eating the brush, and just turn them loose and just stop asking for permission. Just do it. Release the goats. Let's go on to this next one. This is more positive. We can move on from the depressing California wildfires, and we go to Nicole Wiskoff, who says the @Tech Bros Pod will be one of the top 3 podcasts in tech by the end of the year. Let's go. Thank you, Nicole. Boom.
And I commented to Nicole because I said roughly 5% of our show is just covering Nicole's post.
Yeah.
So if
she's a poster, she's almost at 100K followers.
If she's correct, it's becomes a huge part of her W Ventures platform.
Totally.
Right. Yeah, where she can just count on a few times a week.
I'm getting mentioned.
My posts in front of, the entire, tech world
community,
and print it. Print it is the key thing.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyways, brother Nicole.
What are your top 3? I was thinking about a new segment called Gun to Your Head, where I ask you a tough question and we pull out a gun. I ordered some squirt guns that look like blocks.
Squirt guns would be good.
And it's like, right now, what's the last Founders episode you listened to? Tell me. You're like, I haven't listened to a few in a couple weeks. Senra's going to be mad at me.
Re-listen to Dyson.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so we also
top 3. I would love to be up there with Invest Like the Best, Founders Podcast, Technology Brothers.
We'll happily take the third spot.
Dream lineup.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some stiff competition out there. Dwarcash is on fire, obviously. That's about it.
All in is in a crisis, but they'll figure it out. Anyways,
private equity comes
love you,
in,
Nicole.
Buys the show and turns.
Thank
it
you
around.
for the support.
We talked about that. Did you post this? Mark Andreessen saying, yes, I read it twice. His ID says his name is Climate Change.
I just thought it was a good
Oh, because he's an arsonist?
So this is the arsonist that got arrested at the Kenneth Fire, which sparked up yesterday around Calabasas and in basically 2 hours went from 0 to thousands of acres.
Yep.
And everybody was like, how does this make sense? It was so far away from the Palisades Fire and upwind. Just didn't make any sense. Turns out arsonist. And of course, Bernie Sanders is out there saying like, this is all about climate change, which is at this point, I find it, we don't talk about politics on this podcast, but I find it deeply offensive that Bernie in Vermont wants to post and say that this is all about climate change.
Yeah.
When it clearly is, there's a bunch of policy and political failures that and just a lack of, Newsom cares more about looking good in a crisis than preventing the crisis in the first place.
Should go to Greenland. Climate is going to be beachfront property. It's going to be the new Miami. After climate change wreaks havoc.
Miami. We're going to
get
have
a
this
mountain in Greenland, mountain in Alaska. Waterworld happens.
Yeah.
We're chilling.
Yeah, we won't. Greenland will really have been taken once the mega VCs are setting up offices there.
Yeah. We got to go to Greenland. It seems cool. Let's stay on Greenland. Go to Bojan. He says, Greenland is easy. Time to play on the hard mode. And posts a screenshot of the world, and it's just Egypt.
No, he's highlighting the Middle East.
It's the entire Middle East, from Iran to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Dubai, Turkey, I think is in here. That would be controversial. I'm surprised this has not gotten some more blowback because
did we not already basically attempt that for 20 years?
We did, in fact, attempt that for 20 years unsuccessfully.
Didn't go super well.
Although, wasn't Kushner talking about more of a realignment between Israel and Saudi Arabia and some of the other countries?
We don't talk about politics,
there's a number
but that
of
was like
things
a
that are happening. Yeah.
effort of the last admin. Anyways,
so it's happening. Well, let's go to crypto.
Literally,
Shazan says, I predicted the Thor chain collapse in 2023 when they launched their lending feature, and it's happening now. The lesson people never seem to learn is any system in crypto that can fail will fail. When you borrowed on Thor chain, they would sell your BTC collateral for their own token, Rune. If you repaid your loan, they would need to sell Rune for BTC to give you back your collateral. But this leads to a death spiral opportunity, as decrease in Rune price leads to more people wanting to get their BTC back from Thor chain, which leads to more Rune being sold, which leads to a decrease in Rune price, and so on. This is exactly what's happening. People thought Thor chain was a self-custodial secure protocol, whereas it was the exact opposite. In fact, the founder today tried to shut down the app. There's only one secure option to borrow against your BTC, Lava XYZ. It's simple, and there's no Ponzi-nomics involved. All we've done is embed the logic for a standard over-secured loan into a smart contract so you can borrow without bridging or taking on external risks. Unfortunately, this will be a multi-billion-dollar failure comparable to what we saw in 2022. This was predictable too. It's basically what happened with Terra Luna happening again. Kudos to Sunny A97 for jamming with me about this in early 2024. Rough for anyone in Rune or Thor chain. I've heard about this chain. I've never bought it or really dug in, but people were into it. Yeah, Rune, Thor chain.
Is Rune involved with that?
No. It's not ROON. It's RUNE. Very funny though. But
he's moonlighting.
There was some Anon account that was promoting this chain for a long time, and people really seem to like that guy. And so I think it got a decent amount of pump and excitement and investment, but it seems like it's collapsing.
A decent pump like our back workout this morning.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Spamming delts.
Spamming delts. Let's go to a promoted post.
Let's see what we got here. I got to jump in. We haven't talked about DuPont Registry enough this episode. This thing looks pretty fantastic. It's a one-of-one custom 1994 Porsche 911.
Oh, we're in dangerous territory. TJ is going to destroy us.
So TJ is going to be pissed about this one, but it's just this
resto
thing
mod?
looks. Yeah, it's a resto mod.
No.
But the Speedster is just such a beautiful concept, and I think resto mods are great for non-car guys that want to LARP as car guys.
Okay.
They're like, look at my resto mod. Like,
yep.
I'm very much a purist. I'm not a Brabus guy.
Yeah.
I'm not the closest I'll get to an aftermarket is AMG, right?
Yeah.
Which used to be an aftermarket,
Yeah.
Offshoot.
I thought you were going to West Coast Customs, and
yeah, but that's for the minivan.
And the engine swap on your F40.
That's for
the V12
engine
F40.
swapping my F40 engine into my minivan.
The V12 F40 is grail.
But yeah,
grail
this
car.
thing, I love the Speedster. I think it's an underrated car, and this thing's priced at only $589,000.
Practically giving it away.
Practically giving it away. I mean, you could buy a house in like someplace like Dallas, or you could buy this.
Yep.
You can't drive a house. You can't go on the TB500 in a house.
Yeah.
But you can do it in this Evo Max 911 Spider. So
enjoy.
Thank you to DuPont Registry for even sharing this in the first place.
Bucket pull time. We got one. Samuel says they should rebuild LA to look like Tokyo, remove what remains of the brush, chop down these fire-prone forests, and deck the place out in skyscrapers with an actual working public transit system. It's a joke post, but it's super true, super, super true. A big part of what's driving these crazy fires is what's called living at the wilderness interface. So this is where I live. I literally live up against a mountain that if it catches fire, I'm fucked. But it's amazing because you can just go out your backyard and go hiking, and there's wild animals, and you see deer and bears and possums and cougars and all sorts of cool stuff. And it's like living in the forest.
Contrast of like it's very relaxing. Like
very relaxing. It's amazing.
I can go out of my backyard, walk up the hill, and go straight onto a trail.
But a little bit of the problem, I think, is that we wind up building out, not because people necessarily want to live near the wilderness interface, but
that's a love of bears.
Yeah, for sure. Which we're working on domesticating. But it's more that the housing is expensive. There's nowhere else to build. And so you just build up until the mountains, and then you're building like gridded out, dense houses, all out of wood that just go up in one after another. And that's exactly what's happened. Whereas if you alleviate the housing pressure by building taller buildings in the core downtown and surrounding area, well, then you don't need to be as dense once you get up into the mountains. And that leads to less fire risk.
I just don't know. I think that you could put up 40 new skyscrapers in LA and there would still be
40. I'm talking
4,000.
40,000. Like I'm talking about like you walk around New York, every building is 50 stories tall. That's like the average building. You just look up. And even in a place like San
but
Francisco,
even in a place like New York, they're still using every extra square inch of the entire place. So I just think that we'd still have the same issue. We just have new skyscrapers. I'm not opposed to
maybe. But
I would still want to live where I live, even if there was
True. But I would like I really really do hope that this leads to a relaxing of building regulations and more aggressive permitting, because I mean the permitting office is a beast. We talked about it, about my nightmare with getting some stuff permitted, but there's just it is crazy that we can all agree that some permitting rules make sense. That you don't necessarily, if you're in some residential area, you don't necessarily want a skyscraper going up next to you.
Yeah, Warren Buffett would be pissed if he built a literal castle wall around his entire.
He might respect it. Who knows?
Yeah,
depends on until he hears that engine roar, the V12. You know,
the Jesco.
Then he's like, okay, that's a W16. I hear the Bugatti firing up. The tourbillon's going. Or the Chiron's got the W16. The tourbillon has a V16. That's an insane engine. And so he hears the tourbillon, he's going to be like, respect. The castle wall. I will deal with the castle wall. But it is crazy that we can all agree that there should be rules around what you can build. The problem is that there's this crazy paper-based analog workflow to actually getting things approved, where you have to send in basically a PDF of your plan. It has to get printed out, reviewed by a human. It takes a really long time. Like there should be a plugin literally in CAD where as you're designing, it just tells you you're in violation of this code. And then you can just design it. And once the thing goes green and everything is approved and you're not violating any code, you have no code violations, you just hit print and just go do it.
Yeah,
and it's just like, okay, it's automatically
approved. But this is a symptom of
the
bloat of. This is why deregulation makes sense.
Yeah,
is because you get so many laws that build up that it becomes illegal to do anything.
Exactly. And so if the laws hold over the next few years, I mean, the Palisades is going to be empty for a decade. Like it's just going to take forever to rebuild anything. But hopefully, this is the opportunity to get a new mayor in, new team. Doge it, kick a bunch of people out, and completely change the rules.
Yeah.
That would be great. Anyway, should we do this Power Bottom Dad post? Update from Oregon, 1,000-year empire. And he's posting a screenshot. A massive new lithium discovery on the border between Oregon and Nevada could supercharge the country's white gold rush. It is estimated that the newly discovered reserves under the ancient McDermott caldera holds a whopping 40 million metric tons of lithium. The scale of the deposit is extraordinary, dwarfing other reserves worldwide. Just last year, lithium producers were thrilled to find a reserve of 4 million metric tons of lithium in the Smackover Formation, a geologic formation that spans the width of Arkansas, next to the McDermott caldera. That now seems a paltry sum. China alone refines 60% of the world's lithium. Not for long. So yeah, he's saying 1,000-year empire with a lot of American flags. I guess we just found a ton of lithium. I didn't hear this story. I completely missed this.
There's this graphic of, we're using this natural resource and we're running out of it. And then America just finds 10 lifetimes worth of it. And it just continues. Happened with oil. And it's beautiful. We're blessed.
It always was funny how people refuse to admit that there is a resource bottleneck around solar panels. Eventually you're going to dig up all the raw materials for solar panels too, and you will run out. But I think it's just way more than oil, so it makes sense.
Peter Zeihan will often start listening to him, and you're like, this guy's goated.
Yeah.
Like, he's very nice to listen to. He can talk about any subject. And then he starts talking about stuff that you know about, and then you're like, wait, like this guy's just like spewing.
That's the Gelman amnesia we're talking about.
But his talks and writing on the U.S. And how blessed we are from a natural resource standpoint is timeless. So I gotta let's do like one more. I gotta get on with my chiropractor. He's over from the East Coast visiting.
Let's do Tane. He says, simple but neat example of a valuable AI feature that runs on device, Tinder's AI photo finder. Leveraging our vast data set spanning hundreds of millions of Tinder profiles and billions of user interactions, we train a proprietary new AI model to sift through your camera roll in seconds and identify the photos most likely to succeed on the app. Importantly, we designed this system to run entirely on your device, so no images leave your phone unless you choose. This allows us to upload the highest standards of privacy and transparency. That's cool. That's good. Hopefully it helps people meet each other, solve the fertility crisis a little bit. But Tinder's kind of lost the plot on like actually getting people together for the long term, haven't they? It seems like it's just like a casual dating app. But I don't know. I'm
not a great brand. Not a great brand at this point.
Yeah. But I'm sure some people
we don't
meet
have
their
a lot of
spouses
we don't have a lot
Tinder.
of visibility into the apps right now because
No
we have a group chat.
Yeah.
And we had one single person in it. And then they just got in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's like, how are we going to? And they were anti-app.
Yeah. There is an arc where, like, even if you're the first person to get married in your friend group, like, usually it's like, oh, you got some single people. Like, let me swipe for you. Let me see who you're talking to. Like, I'll be the judge for you. People, a lot of girls do this at like, their girls' nights, but. That is completely gone.
Why don't you mansplain girls' nights?
Yeah.
Delegated swiping is what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's it. Delegated swiping.
I do think somebody messaged me and they were like, I think there's an opportunity to do a delegated swiping app where you can't swipe for yourself. It's only
your friends can.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. It'd be kind of a gamified version.
A little gimmick. You might be able to get your first 1 million users.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, the gimmicks were powerful in the dating app realm because there was the Bumble had a gimmick, which was only the woman could message first. Then Hinge had a gimmick, which was it had to be like a second degree connection on Facebook, so you had like a mutual friend. Then the Ladder, remember, or was it the League? Was like you had to verify that you made over 100K. And then there was Raya, which was like you had to be a celebrity basically.
Which is such a funny number. Which is a really funny.
It is. Yeah, it is a funny number. It's like not that high.
Because the girls that are really trying to find somebody that's like legitimately wealthy, like would be so disappointed to get on there and swipe, and they meet the love of their life, and they're like, wait, you're on the League, but like, you make like $8,000 a month.
Yeah. Wait, why is this dentist in Ohio on here?
Dentist
HVAC consultant.
Dentists get paid, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much inflation. Like 100K is like everyone now. Well, anyway,
one more
promoted post.
We gotta. We're gonna end the show after this.
Okay.
Sean Frank, dear friend, Sean's house was at risk of a fire. Still reaching out to me, checking in on me. Great dude.
Yep.
But he is doing a public service here, which he says he's giving away the blueprint for 2025.
Okay.
Which he says, my tips for a better life in 2025. Buy a effing Ridge wallet. I'm serious, man. You have seen our ads for a decade at this point. What? You don't think you deserve a nice premium treat? You don't like carbon fiber or sick titanium wallets that can expand to fit 1 to 12 cards? I think you do. I love you and believe in you. Make this year your year by giving me $95 to $195. You can even use code Sean at ridge.com for a slight discount. So
there we go.
The thing that we love about Ridge more than anything, even more than Sean and more than the design of their products, is just their profitability. I mean, this company prints cash, which is fitting for a wallet company.
And their dedication to performance ads. When you're carrying a Ridge wallet,
Connor
it says
is the
something.
top performance marketer of the last decade.
Yeah.
And these two guys are selling more wallets than pretty much anyone else on earth. So anyways,
a lot of buying a specific consumer item is about aligning yourself with a brand and the team behind that brand.
You don't want to support a company that's underperforming.
Yeah, if you see someone in a Model 3 in LA you know that they bought that car because they support Elon. They believe everything he believes, and they're politically aligned with Elon. And you can go up to them and say,
not everyone.
You know,
some of them have a bumper sticker that say like, "I don't like the big man."
Yeah, but some of them are doing that sarcastically. So you should still go up to them and say, "I know why you bought this car. You're a big Elon fan. I get it."
Yeah.
They love that.
I'll see you in the tunnel.
Yeah.
Tell them that.
Yeah. They love that. But it's the same thing with Ridge. You pull out a Ridge wallet. Everyone knows you take performance ads seriously. So go buy a Ridge wallet. Tell them the Technology Brothers sent you.
Show by juggling.
DM Sean. Use his code, but DM him and say we sent you.
And I will say I will not stop juggling until everyone listening to this
subscribes
and gives us 5 stars.
Let's do it.
And gets their entire group chats to give us 5 stars.
It's great. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.